Matthew 20, verse 1 through 19. For the kingdom of heaven is like a master of a house who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for a denarius a day, he sent them into his vineyard. And going out about the third hour, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace. And to them he said, "You go to the vineyards too, and whatever is right I will give you." So they went. Going out again about the 6th hour and the 9th hour, he did the same. And about the 11th hour he went out and found others standing. And he said to them, "Why do you stand here idle all day?" They said to him, "Because no one has hired us." And he said to them, "You too go into the vineyards." And when evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, "Call the laborers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last up to the first." And when those hired about the 11th hour came, each of them received a denarius. And when those hired first came, they thought they would receive more, but each of them also received a denarius. And on receiving it, they grumbled at the master of the house, saying, "These last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat." But he replied to one of them, "Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what belongs to you and go. I chose to give you this last worker as I gave to you. Am I not allowed to do what I chose with what belongs to me? Or do you begrudge my generosity? So the last will be first, and the first last." And when Jesus was going up to Jerusalem, he took the 12 disciples aside on the way, and he said to them, "See, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be delivered over to the chief priests and scribes, and they will condemn him to death and deliver him over to the Gentiles to be mocked and flogged and crucified, and he'll be raised on the third day."
Good morning. We're reading Matthew 25, 14 through 30. For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country, who called his own servants and delivered his goods to them. And to the one he gave 5 talents, and another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his own ability. And immediately he went on a journey. Then he who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them, and made another 5 talents. And likewise he who had received 2 gained 2 more also. But he who had received 1 went and dug in the ground, and hid his Lord's money. After a long time the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. So he who had received 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, saying, "Lord, you delivered to me 5 talents. Look, I have gained 5 more talents besides them." His Lord said to him, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You are faithful over a few things. I will make you a ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord." He also, who had received 2 talents, came and said, "Lord, you delivered to me 2 talents. Look, I have gained 2 more talents besides them." His Lord said to him, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord." Then he who had received the 1 talent came and said, "Lord, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not scattered seed. And I was afraid and went and hid your talent in the ground. Look, there you have what is yours." But his Lord answered and said to him, "You wicked and lazy servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seeds. So you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. Therefore take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. For everyone who has, more will be given, and he who has abundance, but from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the unprofitable servant into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping, reaping, and gnashing of teeth."
Good morning. Thank you, Adam, even though I didn't give you a choice. And thank you, Kellen, even though Mireya didn't give you a choice. It's good to have strong women that demand their men serve God. We're continuing our message series today on transformation. And today we're going to talk about something that plagues all of us. We're going to talk about the trap that many of us find ourselves in, the comparison trap. I hope everyone has their passport this morning because you've been traveling in a land you didn't even realize that you were in. You won't find it on a map, but every single person in this room finds themselves visiting it. And most of us have traveled there so long that we don't even hear our own accent anymore. It's called the land of Ur. Here's how we know that we live there in the land of Ur. You don't just want to be rich, do you? You want to be rich-er. You don't want to be in shape. You want to be fit-er or thinner or younger than the other person. You want to be smarter. You want to be faster. You want to be bigger. You want your house to be nicer, your car to be nicer. You want to be funny-er at the party. You want to be the cool-er person in the room. You want to have more followers on social media. And can I be honest, even in church, even in here, we want it, don't we? We want to be more holier than the other person. We want to be a better Christian than the person sitting in the row in front of us. Now, here's what nobody tells you about the land of Ur. The little word Ur is a trap. And here's why. Ur doesn't mean anything by itself. You can't be richer alone on a deserted island. Richer only works if somebody else is poorer than you. Smarter needs somebody dumber than you. Thinner needs someone heavier than you. Which means every single thing you want in that country is always measured against another human being. The whole place is built on other people, not yourself. Oh, and it gets worse. The land of Ur has no borders. There's no edge to it. There's no finish line. Because the second you finally get richer, you look over and you see that somebody else just bought a newer car, better than the one you just bought. You can run as hard as you want in the land of Ur, and you will never, ever arrive. It's like the hamster on the wheel, a treadmill the size of a country where you never reach the finish line. Now, about 3,000 years ago, there was a really wise guy. The richest man who ever lived took a long, hard look at that country and wrote down what he saw. His name was Solomon. Now, the book of Ecclesiastes is an amazing book. He starts out saying, worthless, worthless, everything is worthless, kind of a depressing start to it. But when you read the whole thing, here's the life of Solomon, who was literally the richest person in the entire world, the most powerful person in the entire world. Anything he wanted, Solomon got it. Anything he wanted to have, he pursued it with all of his might. And in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, the wise Solomon, after having gone through all of that stuff, notice what he says in chapter 4. I got to push the right button. Oh man, my eyes are getting bad, guys. Ecclesiastes chapter 4 and verse 4. He says, I've seen every labor and every skill which is done, and the result, rivalry between man and his neighbor. This too is vanity and striving after wind. Did you catch that? Solomon says the engine underneath all of it, all the striving, all the it's this rivalry, this envy that builds up inside of us. We're not chasing the house, we're chasing their house. And Solomon gives his verdict of the whole enterprise. He says, it's meaningless. I want all of you right now, put your right hand up, right? Put your right hand up like this, and I want you to go like this. All right. Now look at the person next to you. Joe doesn't have anybody. Look over that way. Joe, you look like a fool. And guess what? So do I. And so does everybody else, right? Solomon is giving us the perfect illustration. Who would do that? You can't grab it. It's grasping after wind. It's pointless. It's meaningless. You can't catch the wind, and you can't win in the land of Ur. And that brings me back to that piece of coal from last week. How many of you still have yours? How many ate yours? Last week I put a piece of coal in your hand and I told you it points to 3 words that Jesus spoke to a failure on a beach. He said, "You follow me." But I held something back from that narrative last week intentionally. I never told you why Jesus had to say those words, because something happened 3 seconds earlier that made those 3 words necessary, and I'm going to tell you exactly what it was in just a few minutes. But first, I want you to get this thing out and hold it in your hand. Some of you were already holding it. Some of you in the back were already scrolling on it. I see things, okay? My eyes are bad, but I see things. Because here's what's new in our lifetime. For most of history, the land of Ur was pretty small. It was your street, your village, your neighborhood, maybe your little city you grew up in. And now you carry the whole world around in your pocket. And it glows bright. You can't even help yourself. Some of you didn't even realize it. You opened it up while you were sitting there in the middle of a song and clicked on Instagram or Facebook, TikTok. What are some of the other ones? And when you opened it up, there it was. Somebody got a promotion that you didn't get. The vacation somebody's on that looks amazing that you can't afford. Somebody's highlight reel. That new dress, those fancy shoes, that new car. And here's the tell. You realize that you started to feel bad. But why? You didn't lose anything. Nothing was taken away from you. But yet your joy just disappeared, didn't it? Just because you, listen to this, you saw something, and seeing it cost you your joy. So let me say out loud the questions sitting underneath all of this, the ones that nobody ever says. Why does somebody else's blessing feel like my loss? Why can't I just be happy with what I already have? And then underneath even those, the one that really hurts, if I'm not ahead of somebody, do I even matter? I'm not going to answer that yet, but I'll tell you this much. Before we take one more step, you have been living your whole life in a country that God didn't create. Never once asked you to traverse. And today, I want to show you the way out. So here's my promise to you this morning. By the time that we're done, you'll look at someone else's blessing and feel joy instead of loss. If you'll stay with me for the next half hour, you're going to walk out of this room with the ability to do something that perhaps has plagued you your entire life. The ability to look at somebody else's blessings, their win, their house, their highlight reel, and actually feel joy instead of loss of joy. You're going to find an off-ramp from a treadmill that you've been running on for most of your life. Because by the end of this message, you're going to know exactly how God keeps score. And it's way different than the way that you've been keeping score. And I promise you, it's not the way that will get you anywhere. And here's the freeing part. I want you to hear it before we even start. You cannot win the comparison game. There is absolutely no win in comparison. As soon as you become the best, somebody else gets better than you. But here's what nobody told you. You're not supposed to be playing that game. God's not running that race. He's running a completely different one. And to show you that, I'm going to take you to 3 places, 3 specific examples in the Bible where we see this. Let's start by going back to that beach, because I owe you the rest of that story. You remember it. The charcoal fire, Jesus there, Peter denied Jesus 3 times, Jesus is crucified, comes back from the dead, it appeared the 3rd time, comes to Peter there and the rest of the disciples on the beach. The best moment in Peter's life, man, he was down low, and all of a sudden he's in a moment of absolute and complete joy. And then, watch this, John chapter 21 and verse 20, right? Jesus said, do you love me, right? And Peter said, you know that I love you, those 3 times, and he's crying, and Jesus is restoring Peter in this moment of time. And then right after that happens, something else happens before he says the you follow me part. The very first thing out of Peter's mouth, just 90 seconds after one of the best restoration moments in his entire life, is he's walking along with Jesus, he turns over and he sees John, the disciple whom Jesus loved. And instantly in that moment, after his great restoration, Peter looks over and he sees John, and he said to Jesus, what about this guy? You just told me I had to tend your lambs and feed your sheep. You just said if I follow you, I'm going to have to die a death that I don't want to even die. What about John? And then notice what Jesus says. Jesus said, what is that to you? You follow me. 90 seconds. The man's been restored for 90 seconds, and he's already turning around to size himself up against the guy walking right behind him. And Jesus' answer to Peter is the entire message in a single sentence. You follow me. That is what the coal has been pointing to this whole time. And now you know why I told you that story first. Because if comparison can catch a man 90 seconds after the single greatest moment of his life of restoration, it can catch Peter on the beach looking right at the risen, resurrected Savior Jesus, then it can absolutely catch you this morning on your way to the parking lot. Jesus knew that. So he told 2 parables about this exact trap that we find ourselves in. One story about what comparison does to you, and one story about how God actually keeps score. The first one Adam read for us is in Matthew chapter 20. And Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who goes out early in the morning. He hires workers in his vineyard. He finds a crew right at sunrise. He agrees with them on their pay, 1 denarius. Now, a denarius was literally a day's wage. So it was the normal average day's wage. So if somebody came out to hire you in the morning and they said, I'm going to pay you for a day's work, you would expect to get a denarius. And that's exactly what this landowner does. He goes out and he says, I need workers, and I'm willing to pay you a day's wage. And they say, okay, they shake on it, and they go to work. Business must have been going good because he needs more hands. So he goes back out there at 9 o'clock in the morning, sends his foreman to hire more men. Goes back out at noon, goes back out at 3, and then get this, verse 6. He goes out one more time at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, just 1 hour left in the workday, and he hires that last batch. Quitting time comes, everybody's favorite time of the day, and here's the detail. You don't want to miss this. Look at verse 8. The landowner tells his foreman to pay everybody, listen to this, beginning with the last ones hired going to the first. You see, this was intentional. Jesus is showing that this is intentional to teach a message to all of them that had signed up for a fair wage at the very beginning of the day. Go out, pay the ones you hired last first. He pays the 1 hour first on purpose, which means, listen to this, the sunrise crew, those people that got up before the sun came up and got ready, brushed their teeth, drank their coffee, and went out to go to work, they got to watch. They got to watch the people that had only worked for 1 hour get paid first and get paid the exact same amount that they were about to get paid. They had to stand there and watch it. You ever see somebody getting rewarded? And you're like, that's not fair. The only reason you think it's not fair is because you got to watch them get rewarded. If you had no clue how much they got paid, you would have just assumed that it was all fair, and you would have went on your day happy as could be. But because these men that got there before the sunrise had to watch the guys that came in at the last hour get paid, all of a sudden, their joy disappears. They would have been so happy if they had not seen that. Man, I went to work and I got paid an honest day's wage. I can go home, cook dinner, flip on the TV, kick my feet back, and all is good. But no, all of a sudden their joy is gone. Why? Because they saw someone that only worked 1 hour get paid the same amount that they did. And listen to how the landowner answers this. When they say, this isn't right. Wait a minute, they got a whole denarius for 1 hour. Then imagine what we should have been getting since we were out here since 6 o'clock in the morning. At the very end of this, the sunrise crew gets paid, and they get exactly what they had agreed to. 1 denarius, same coin. The very same wage that at 6 o'clock that morning they felt good about. Felt like an answer to their prayer. They had a job. They could pay the bills, feed the family. The same exact coin is now, at the end of the day, the reason that they're furious. And they start grumbling with the landowner. And listen to how the landowner answers them in verse 13. Friend, am I not being unfair to you? Didn't you agree to work for a denarius? Take your pay and go. I want to give the one who was hired last the same as I gave you. Don't I have the right to do what I want to do with my own money? And then comes this line in verse 15. I want you to hear it the way it actually reads in the original language. Or is your eye evil? Okay, I got to read my notes. I can't read the screen. I got to get new glasses. Put that on the note. Or is your eye evil because I am good? Is your eye evil because I am good? Do you hear what Jesus just diagnosed? Comparison didn't change one thing about what was in the man's hand at all. He had a full denarius before he looked, and he had a full denarius after he looked. What comparison changed was how he saw what he held in his hand. It poisoned his eye. He went home that night with the exact wage that he'd been thrilled when he agreed to it in the morning, and now he felt robbed. Nothing was stolen. The coin never changed. His view changed. And here's the kicker. If the landowner had just paid everybody in the opposite order, those guys that got there at 5 in the morning would have taken their coin and gone home happy, wouldn't they? The only difference was they saw somebody getting something that they perceived was not fair. So let me get honest with some of you for a second. Some of you are holding a denarius right now, and you're holding the job you once begged God for. Yeah, you know that one you're complaining about? That one you go home to your wife and you just rant about? The one you call your family on the phone as you're driving home from work that you can't stand? You remember when you were praying for that job, and when they called you and said you got that job and you were so excited you took the whole family out to dinner? Let's be honest with ourselves. You remember that marriage that you prayed for on your knees that you now complain to your friends about? The kids you prayed to God so much that He would allow you to have, and now you just say, I just can't wait to get away from them. That house that you live in, that you saved for, that you tried so hard to get, you finally got it, now you hate it. It was enough. In fact, it was the answer to your prayer at one time. Right up until the day you saw somebody else's. And you thought it's better than what I have. And I need you to hear this. Nothing in your life actually changed. Comparison just handed you an evil eye for the goodness and grace of God. That's what comparison does. It's why it's a trap. Now let me show you how God actually keeps score. Go forward just a few chapters into Matthew chapter 25, another story, another parable by Jesus. A master again is going away on a journey, and before he leaves, he entrusts his wealth to his servants. The one he gives 5 talents, and a talent was an enormous sum of money. The another he gives 2, and to another one he gives 1. And Matthew tells us that he gave to each according to his ability. Matthew chapter 25 and verse 15. Now don't rush past that line. The amounts were not random. They were intentionally handed out by God. They were not careless. They were hand measured by the master. The master looked at each servant, knew exactly what each one could carry, and measured out a portion that was custom fit to the specific person. Your portion in life that God has given you, listen to this, it's not an accident. God knows what he's doing. He created you. So the master leaves. The 5-talent servant goes and puts his money to work, and he gains 5 more. The 2-talent servant does the very same thing, and he gains 2 more. And eventually the master comes home, and he's ready to settle things up. Now here's where the gem of this entire parable lays. And I need you to slow all the way down and look at this with me, because most people read straight past it. Look at what the master says to the 5-talent man in verse 21. And then go down and look at what he says to the 2-talent man in verse 23. The one had 5, got 5 more, right? And then you got the other one that had 2, and he got 2 more. But notice this. They are identical in what the master says to them. Word for word. To both of them, the master says the exact same thing. Here it is. Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. God literally Xerox photocopied the well done from the one that got 5 to the one that got 2. Now, how would we analyze this? Well, the guy that got 5 more certainly was better than the guy that only got 2 more. That's how we look at things, isn't it? Well, that guy was obviously better because he got 5 and this one only got 2. Do you understand what that means? The 2-talent man was never measured by God against the 5-talent man. Let me say that again. The 2-talent man was never measured by God against the 5-talent man. Not for a second. He didn't get a smaller well done. Pretty good job. The exact same. The master never said, well, you only made 2, and that guy over there made 5, so never said that. The 2-talent man was measured against exactly one thing: his own faithfulness to his God. With his portion that God specifically allotted to him. And listen to the actual word the master grades on. He says, good and faithful servant. He doesn't say good and successful servant, does he? He doesn't say good and superior servant, does he? He says, well done, you beat all the others. Didn't say that. The only word on God's report card, on his scoreboard, is this: faithful. Faithful. Faithful, not first. But there's a third servant in the story, isn't there? And we cannot skip him, because the third servant is exactly where comparison ends up. The 1-talent man goes out, digs a hole, buries his talent in the ground, and when the master comes back, listen to the reasoning of this man. He says, I knew you to be a hard man. So I was afraid, and I went out and I hid your talent in the ground. Verse 24 and 25. Catch his reason. It wasn't really about the money at all, was it? It was about his belief concerning the master. He decided that the master was a hard and unfair man, stingy and harsh. And a servant who believes that about his master will always bury what he's been given. And church, isn't that exactly where comparison takes you? You look at your one talent sitting there next to their 5, and that little voice in your head starts whispering, yours is too small to even matter. Yours doesn't really even count. And so you bury it. That voice, the reason somebody never sings, the reason somebody never steps up to teach Bible class, the reason somebody never steps up to serve God, never starts a thing, never writes a book. That's an inside joke. Never launches that ministry. So hear me. Comparison doesn't just steal your joy. It buries your God-given talent. Now let me put these stories right next to each other because they're secretly about the same thing. The vineyard workers doubted the master's fairness. Is your eye evil because I am good? The one-talent man doubted the master's goodness. I knew you to be a hard man. And here's the truth that ties it all together. He was wrong. The master wasn't too hard at all. So watch what is really happening underneath every single one of these comparisons. Comparison is never actually about the other person. Listen, let me say that again. Comparison is never actually about the other person. Comparison at its root is an accusation against God. Comparison. God, you shorted me. You gave them more. You were better to them than you were to me. And both of these parables answer that accusation with the very same thing. The character of the master is insulted. He's generous. He's not hard. He's measured. He's not unfair. And he's going to measure your whole life by one single word, not a single other person. Not first, but faithful. So here's the truth I want to build into you this morning, and it is this. God doesn't grade on a curve. He doesn't. Never has, never will. Let me show you why we gave the message the title that we gave it. There's no win in comparison. And I mean that literally. Comparison only has 2 possible outcomes, just 2. Outcome number 1, you come out behind. You look and they're ahead of you, and you know exactly what that buys you. It buys you envy, and you live your whole life envious of someone else with no joy in your life and miserable. It buys you low-grade shame, and then it follows you all around all day long, and it wakes you up at 2 in the morning and whispers in your ear, you're not good enough. Outcome number 2, you actually come out ahead, and you look like you're winning. And this one feels great, but only for a little while. It's actually a trap in disguise. Because what coming out ahead hands you is pride. And C.S. Lewis put his finger right on it when he said this about pride. He said, pride can never make you happy. He said that pride gets no pleasure at all out of having something. It only gets pleasure out of having more than the next person. Which means pride can never ever rest. I've known these people in my life. They were super successful, and they were miserable people because they were always scared that somebody was going to one day beat them. They lived their whole life chasing something that eventually they would die and somebody else would eventually achieve. There's no win in comparison. Solomon already said this 3,000 years ago. That guy was pretty smart. In physical terms, in Proverbs chapter 14 and verse 30, a tranquil heart. You know what a tranquil heart is? That's where you can just sit down and breathe easy. Everything is good. You ever experienced tranquility? Nothing like it in all the world. Everything is good. The tranquil heart gives life to the flesh, but listen to this. But envy makes the bones rot. When you have envy in your heart, when your eye is always looking at something somebody else has that you do not have, you will never be comfortable, you will never sleep well at night, and you will never have joy in your life. Solomon knew that. That's why he said it 3,000 years ago. So run the math with me. If you came out behind, you lose. If you come out ahead, you lose. You ever play that game as a kid? Heads you win, tails you lose. Right? Heads I win, tails you lose. That's the game. Right? You know how that game works. It's a trick, right? Anybody ever fall for that when you were little? Yeah. Okay, I'll play. Heads I win, tails you lose. Heads I win, tails I lose. Wait a second. There's no way to win. Just like comparison. But there is a well done for the faithful. So here's what I want you to take home with you. The vineyard workers went home holding everything they had been promised, and they felt robbed. Comparison can make you feel cheated while you're holding the answer to your prayer. But God's not asking who got more. Faithful, not first. The 2-talent man got the exact same well done as the 5-talent man. Word for word, God doesn't grade on a curve. Faithful, not first. Peter, 90 seconds into the greatest grace he was ever extended in his life, turned around and said, Lord, what about him? And Jesus said, what is that to you? You follow me. Faithful, not first. Your portion was measured out by hand by the God who created you and knows you better than anybody else, according to your ability. God never once is going to ask you why you weren't somebody else. When you get there and you stand before God someday, He's not going to say, well, why didn't you serve like Adam did? Why didn't you lead singing like Joe did? Why didn't you teach class like Mark did? It's not going to happen. Instead, the Father's going to look at you and say, have you been faithful with what I gave you? Were you faithful? Faithful, not first. There's no win in comparison, but there is a well done waiting for the faithful. Faithful, not first. The challenge for you this week, I'm going to give you something to actually do this week, and not just nod at, but to actually do. As you came in this morning, somebody should have handed you a coin. You got a coin? Hold up your coin. I tried to find a replica denarius. This is the closest I could get. I don't remember what it's called, but just pretend it's a denarius or a talent. You can, whatever you want to make it. Don't eat it. It's not chocolate. It'll probably taste just as bad as the coal for those of you that tried that. But same as last week. Every time this week when you find yourself opening your phone, scrolling on Facebook or TikTok or Instagram, pulling into the parking lot, seeing somebody that's got a nicer car than you, and you feel this urge inside of you to be envious, I want you to pull that coin out of your pocket and remember, faithful, not first. Faithful, not first. This week, I want you to go out and not only, when you see those things, not feel envy in your heart, but turn that envy into praise. You're going to celebrate that person. Celebrate that God blessed them with what that is that they were given. Genuinely. I want you to congratulate them on the very thing that's been quietly eating you alive. Send that text to that person that you can't stand because they always seem to be getting what it is that you want. When they get it, when they get that thing, I want you to send them a text and tell them you're happy for them. The moment you start blessing the very thing that used to bug you, listen, the comparison trap loses all of its teeth, and you walk right out of it. Every single coin in this room is identical. That's the entire point. So when your hand finds the coin in your pocket this week, at your desk, in your car, standing in the checkout line, let it ask you the only question God actually cares. Am I faithful? And when you get that sideways glance and it starts up, and it probably will before you get to the parking lot, you answer it out loud right there with these 3 words. Faithful, not first. Now, some of you are sitting there thinking, but you don't understand what they have. You don't know what they did to get it. And you might be right. But Jesus' answer to you is still the coal that you got last week. What is that to you? You follow me. I told you at the very beginning that comparison caught the very first family that ever lived. And the truth is, I could stand up here for hours and time would still run out before I finished counting everything this one trap has cost human beings since the creation. We could talk about Cain, where the very first comparison in human history became the very first murder. We'd have to talk about Joseph's brothers, who looked at a coat and heard about a dream and sold their brother, their own flesh and blood, into slavery to rot. We'd have to talk about Miriam and Aaron, standing there asking, has the Lord really spoken only through Moses? And comparison put leprosy into their family. We could talk about King Saul, who heard people singing a song. Think about how ridiculous this is. He hears them singing a song. Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s, and Saul spent the rest of his life miserable trying to kill David because of comparison. We'd have to talk about the older brother who was busy counting his little brother's blessings, that he stood outside in the yard and missed a party that he was always invited to. We'd have to talk about Martha. Oh, Martha, Martha. Where comparison crawled right into the kitchen while Jesus was sitting in the living room. Lord, don't you even care? Tell my sister to get up and help me. She was comparing what she was doing versus what her sister was doing. We would even have to talk about the disciples, hours away from Jesus' worst moment in life of crucifixion. And you know what was top of mind to them? Lord, who's going to get to sit closest to you and be your closest in the kingdom? They were sizing each other up. Comparison. Arguing with each other about which one was the greatest. Or we could say, who is greater? But there was one man this trap could not hold. His name was John the Baptist. At the absolute height of his ministry, I want you to think about that. At the absolute height of his ministry, his own disciples came running to him in an absolute panic. You remember, people were coming out from all over the countryside to listen to John the Baptist. Like, he had a following, man. And he was at the height of his ministry, and his disciples come up to him and they say, Rabbi, the man you baptized, everyone's now going to him, and our crowds are leaving, and they're following Jesus. Your entire ministry is falling apart. And listen to what might be the freest sentence in all of the New Testament. John says in John chapter 3, verse 27 and 30, a person can receive only what is given them from heaven. He must become greater. I must become less. No spear, no grumbling, no, but what about me? This isn't fair. Just a man so secure in his own God-given assignment that he could actually applaud the one who was outshining him. And I want to show you what that kind of freedom looks like. Not 3,000 years ago, but in living memory, in flesh and blood, about 100 years ago. It was Berlin, 1936, the Olympic Games. Adolf Hitler was on his march with his belief that the blonde-haired, blue-eyed white man was superior to everybody else, and he was going to show that off in the Olympic Games hosted in Berlin by Germany. He invited the world to Germany to watch his athletes prove that one kind of person is superior to everyone else. And the man he's counting on most is a man to do the long jump, a tall, blonde German man named Luz Long. The picture of everything Hitler ever wanted on a poster. Cameras weren't that great back then, but man, he's tall, handsome, blonde-haired, blue-eyed man. And then there was a black man from Ohio named Jesse Owens. And he steps up to the same pit as Luz Long. Now in the qualifying round, Owens is in trouble. He fouls on his first jump. He fouls on his second jump. One more foul and he's out. Eliminated before the final even starts. In front of Hitler, in front of the whole world. And here's where the story gets impossible, because the man who walks over to help him is Luz Long. His rival, the German, the one Hitler's counting on. Long walks over to Jesse Owens in front of the entire crowd, and he quietly tells him how to fix it. Take off well before the board. You'll have room to spare. Just don't foul. It worked. Owens qualified. And then they go to the finals. And Owens beats Luz. Owens takes the gold. Long takes the silver. And the very first man to reach Owens and throw an arm around him and congratulate him right there in front of a furious Hitler is the man he just beat, Luz Long. Do you understand what that man did? Luz Long had every earthly reason to want Jesse Owens to fail. The crowd wanted it. His country wanted it. His government wanted it. Helping his rival could have cost him everything, and he helped him anyway. And he didn't just help him, he celebrated the man who took his medal. Years later, after Long was killed in the war, Jesse Owens said something that's hard to get out of your head once you hear it. He said, "You could melt down every medal and cup I ever won, and they wouldn't be worth the friendship I felt with Luz Long." That's a man who refused to live in the land of Ur. That's someone who looked at the person you're supposed to envy, and he cheered for him instead. That's the whole assignment. So this morning, the question is simple. Which list are you on? The casualties of the trap, or are you free? So here's what I'm asking you to do this week. Every time you feel envy in your heart, every time you start comparing yourself to someone else and what they have, I want you to look at that coin and I want you to say, God wants me to be faithful, not first. And right now, I want you to forget that there's anyone else in this room except you, just you. Some of you walked in here this morning emotionally exhausted. It took every ounce of your energy to get here this morning because you've been living a life where you're wearing yourself out, measuring yourself against every other person. You've been running for years in a grace that God never once entered you in, and you're so tired and exhausted, and you need help. So when we stand up in just a moment to sing the invitation song, I want you to be bold. And I want you to get up out of your seat, and I want you to come down here to the front. You don't have to explain a single thing, just that you're ready today to lay down the measuring stick for good and be faithful, not first. One of our elders will meet you up here on the front row, put a hand on your shoulder, cry with you, and pray with you. Because the same Jesus who looked at comparing man in the eye on that beach is looking right at you right now this morning. And he's not holding a scoreboard. He's not holding a measuring stick. He's holding a sign that says, well done. And it has your name on it, and nobody else's name on it but yours. And that's what he wants to hand you. Lay the stick down. Stop measuring your life against everybody else's. You walked in here this morning measuring your life against others. It's time to change. I want you to walk out of here measured by one word and one word only, because God isn't looking for first. He's looking for faithful. Faithful, not first. Won't you come when we stand and while we sing?